decided to sober up on these videos. I feel like I don't have enough of patience or care to sufficiently YouTubeify my editing style, and I mean, a lot of the praise or commentary that I do receive on my videos is more about the substantive content of the videos rather than stylistic choices, which I think makes sense. Maybe what I'm putting out is a little bit better than what you might expect from a YouTube channel with less than 100 subscribers, at least at the time, but that's probably about it. So why not focus more energy on what people are here to actually see or hear? I feel like people don't do much watching of YouTube videos anyways, such as my about 1 year in review of the 14.5 ounce raw Selvedge Type 3 denim jacket, also known as the Prologue V1. A sequel video is kind of a cop-out, but if it makes you feel any better, I had like 5 more original ideas that I started working on and just quit, so there's some creativity going out in the ether, just not right here. Though my idea is not to wholly rehash an old script, maybe to give my more matured and nuanced thoughts on this piece that's just about 11 months old now. I think that's kind of the appeal of raw denim, right? Wearing it, fading it, that sort of thing. Of course, I've not worn it that much, probably less than a quarter of the days that I've owned it, so you can take whatever end results we might have as, I guess being equivalent to a few months of wear. I'm a little bit scared of going about this review because I am in the bathroom, and not entirely because I was too lazy to set up a better lighting situation in my bedroom, but look at that. Is that in frame? It's a faucet head. We're gonna wash it. Well, I'm not gonna wash it with the shower head, but it's gonna be the tub. I'm gonna wash the jacket. Now, if you want a more detailed breakdown of fit, on top of all the other doodads and features and actual marked improvements between different iterations of the jacket, then I suggest, though I do say this lightly, I suggest that you go and watch my about 1 year old video on the same piece. Again, lightly, I really just can't understand trying to push the camera so close to my face and refusing to brush my hair. One or the other, maybe, but regardless. And moving on, my big 1 year takeaway with this jacket, that's right, 1 year, 12 months, the big lesson that I'll be taking from this excursion into the future is that, while generally positive, I really don't care about Selvedge. I've not yet met a properly convincing argument for such, other than perhaps that the fabric is slightly more durable because perhaps it is woven together slightly more tightly. There's also this correlation, though not causation, ideal that companies which are going out of their way to produce Selvedge denim clothing are also going to be producing higher quality, more detail-orientated pieces by virtue of the fact that they're choosing purposely inefficient material. But the way I see it is, as Selvedge denim becomes more and more of a sales pitch and becomes more and more popular with a wider and wider audience, a la the last 12 months or so, more and more companies are going to see that as a viable market share and produce their own Selvedge denim lines, but with the same evil lack of attention to detail that we were hoping to escape to begin with. So then what's the point of Selvedge denim as a shorthand for higher quality goods? Well, not much is my point. And I really think that a deeper argument about Selvedge or not could be had, but I think that's better left for a better time. But you do you, and if Selvedge is relevant to your purchasing decision, then fantastic. But the fact that it's Selvedge, bro, has impressed me less and less over time. So if it were me, I would recommend On To You, Michael's Leaf line, which the whole idea is supplying the same best of the best ethos, but at a lower material cost, i.e. or e.g.? No, I think i.e. not using Selvedge, therefore a lower consumer entry point. And Ask It, I suppose, has the same idea. They don't really do very much Selvedge stuff, but I've heard middling things about their product, and their website looks a little bit douchey, so. Irregardless, I got my Prologue 1.5 Selvedge jacket secondhand, and I'm not really that upset that it was produced on a shuttle loom. It's a fun detail, it looks nice, there's a little bit of trivia, I guess, to your jacket, something that you know, right? Yeah, all those subjective appeals. So yippee. Considering the specifics of the jacket though, I'm not sure that too many of my thoughts have changed super drastically. For example, I still kind of think that the fit is a little bit too restrictive in the arms and the chest, but maybe that's the cost for a nice slim cut silhouette, something that I don't have a lot of in my wardrobe. So I appreciate that it fills a niche, and otherwise the newer versions of the Prologue are cut to accommodate that a bit more, so maybe that's something you won't even really have to worry about. Though a slightly strange detail that I've come to notice influence the fit or, overall silhouette is actually right here and here on the inside corners of both pockets. The way I understand it is that there's kind of a significant bulk across the seam and especially in this little corner. Every piece of denim here is probably folded over itself for that nice crisp edge, and so you have the pocket flap, the pocket bag, the two front panels, and everything else. It's all just kind of bunching together, and there's probably like, 10 layers of denim here. And then to the left of that, there's this button placket, which has its own sort of stiffness and bulk and, everything like that. But the 1 and 2 kind of centimeter gap between these spaces here, there's significantly less so, right? I would kind of be surprised if this didn't show up as some sort of fade in the future, or I don't know, maybe it'll go away as kind of the whole jacket softens up in the wash or a few washes. This is less of a creative or design decision and more so a convention of type 3 denim jacket construction. You can see it anywhere and everywhere you look if you're paying attention, but I'm not sure how I feel about it in a jacket that's otherwise so, kind of sleek and chic, but that'll change over time too, so I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I just thought it was worth mentioning, I guess. Though speaking of something that I have enjoyed seeing change in a relatively short amount of time is actually the leather patch on the back here. Or I guess on the inside, not on the back. But, my point is that the body oils, or I guess the sort of bright red stamp design, they've sort of seeped and kind of spread throughout the previously very bright white kind of patch, and it just turned ever so slightly darker, shifting into some of those lighter tan tones. And I think over time, this will really start to look great and kind of complement the lighter orange tones, which are already present throughout the piece via the contrasted top stitching, And especially so if it kind of turns out looking like some of those, veg tan comparisons you can find on the internet. And I never really talked about this in my original video, but I do quite like the patch here. I think it's cute and charming, even if I never really understood what and the prologue meant. I'm assuming it's something like and the prologue begins, but that's not entirely self-evident. Maybe it's explained if your jacket came with a little lore book. And anyways, I do kind of prefer it being a little bit of a head scratcher and oddity, right? I think it's a good reminder of some of the more personable details that are present in the piece and some of the personality and care and passion, etc., that brings something like this into existence, sort of a one-man kind of operation. And that's something that you lose if you're kind of looking towards a mass producer in a mass market, which is not a very controversial take, but my point here is that it's a fun perk and a fun reminder. I do still wish that the buttons or hardware in general were a darker, coppery hue to complement the threading, like I mentioned, or the perspective patch colors, right? But I try to tell myself that nobody on the street is going to notice these things. I also think that it'd be a little bit more professional or neat that, if you're going to put text or an image, especially text, on buttons, then it makes sense to maybe try and vertically align them as opposed to having them completely upside down in some cases. And I understand that's a bit of a nitpick, but best of the best is the ethos, and you can kind of take it as a good thing that the only thing I have to complain about is the text orientation on the buttons. I also still am, in theory, annoyed by the fact that the inside pockets run in front of the hand warmers as opposed to behind them. I just feel like this can be a little bit obnoxious because it just feels more natural to have your hand on top of something like you're about to grip it, rather than have something on top of it, kind of compressing it close to your body, if that makes sense. But to be sincere, I don't really use the inside pockets that much anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me. I think at most throughout the day I'll have like my phone, a wallet, keys, and a pen, maybe. So my wallet just goes up here, my phone fits wherever, my keys are in my back pocket. It's not a problem that comes up often. And I guess if you didn't really want to redesign the pockets or anything, just making the jacket a little bit roomier would help with that sort of claustrophobic feeling, but then again, maybe you're losing a little bit of the nice form factor, some of that sleekness, right? And, maybe I didn't spend enough time talking about it, but beyond even the more restrictive elements, I really do love the fit. I think it looks great. I would say that the stitching is held up pretty well. There's a few loose ends here and there, but who knows if they were there to begin with. And what's important about that anyways is that they haven't continued to unravel as I continue to neglect to trim them, which I'll go about correcting one of these days. Something I do appreciate, even though you could possibly posit such as a flaw, are the loose cotton fibers that are coming from the buttonholes. You know, I think it adds this sort of slubby or authentic feel that you get from a nice raw Selvedge denim piece of this caliber, even though I keep praising such for its sleek appeal. And I mean, on fades, finally, right? The exciting bit. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, I haven't really worn this jacket too much, but you can definitely see some of these fade lines coming in the honeycombs, a little bit across the back end here. There's definitely some small bits of wear showing on the corners of certain folds or stress areas. Of course, none of it is too overwhelmingly exciting. I'm sure that most of it is lost in YouTube compression, but you know, I'm at least excited to see if it'll wash up all right. I haven't washed it yet. I'm not really going for sort of heavy fade, high contrast, unwashed look, but this being a jacket, you know, it's not something I was inclined to wash as often as I would a pair of pants, right? Now, to try and avoid shrinkage, I'm gonna try and go about washing this in the least invasive way that I can. You know, normally I think I would just do it by hand with cold tap water in a bucket or something, but I figured that's not very watchable, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it in the tub. So in that case, I refer myself and therefore yourself to this ancient 8-year-old video by Heddles, except I'm not using shampoo and conditioner. I have dark woolite. I'm not going to go over the process in detail, just fill with cool-ish water, right, cool as you can, I guess, and then detergent, agitate it a little bit, let it sit for probably half an hour or so. Enjoy your organic brew, saving as much as needed for later before dumping the rest. Go ahead and refill the tub with cool water, soak and towel wring it. Do not wring it by hand, I reckon, and let it air dry. Do not let it go in the dryer. Don't put it in the dryer. Do not put it in the dryer machine. You ever think about that? Why is it washing machine and dryer? Why not dryer machine? Hey, yeah. And then, finally, enjoy the fruits of your labor. It shrunk. Maybe. Because to be honest, there's really not a huge host of differences between pre and post wash. You know, I'm kind of pulling that. It could be a bit of a placebo where maybe it's a little bit less comfortable to put on, but it never was as easy as you'd like for it to be. And you know, of course, the fit with this jacket was never ideal. It's, you know, not super easy to put on. You know, raising your arms up or just kind of, you know, going at anything to the side. It's a little obnoxious. I try and take it as a trade-off, you know, but that's a little bit of cope, right? And yet, again, this is not something you'd have to deal with the V2s in theory because they sized up a little bit, and then, you know, even again with the V3s. So, you know, if you're in the market considering it, debating it, again, you know, even less of a chance that you're going to have to be worrying about a sizing issue here. And it seems like they generally recommend going kind of true to size, at least, you know, contemporary sizing, right? But yeah, I mean, I think other than that, you know, sort of placebo, you'd really, goes along the whole theme here where you really have to be paying attention to some of the details here to kind of notice some of the changes in the denim. I think probably the underarm has the greatest volume of this sort of, you know, you get some of the white coming through and then not necessarily the denim just kind of going away, but sort of like blending into each other and then making these sort of deep, dark, inky, indigo kind of splotches, and I think that, you know, those look pretty nice. And then even within that, you do get a little bit of some of the, you know, kind of creasing, forming these, you know, distinctive, you know, fade lines, which everybody's so appreciative of. And then I think along the button placket, you can see kind of a lightening of the side, you know, kind of along the pocket flaps, and then across all sorts of random corners dispersed throughout. You know, I would argue that not too much happened around the back. There's maybe this sort of seam at the bottom that definitely lightened up, but definitely no huge fades here, which makes sense because there's not going to be a whole ton of wear. But I mean, other than that, really not a whole lot. You can't really expect a whole lot. Like I said, it's not like I was wearing this for, you know, a fade-a-thon kind of thing. I don't even know what the hell they call those, you know, unwashing contests. But it is what it is, and now it has a little bit more character, and I'll probably wait another year or two before washing this again, and I'm sure some more fades will come through, right? But yeah, I'm just glad it fits. So, you know, hopefully that wouldn't be a problem if you are experiencing fit issues. Just be gentle, right? But, you know, that should be going for all your clothing. Be gentle. to your clothing. They serve you well. Buy nice clothing and treat it well, right? It's like a little squirrel or animal or something. I don't know why I came up with squirrel first. Pretty cool, right? So all in all, I spent a lot of time in this video whining, but I think that's mostly because it's a little bit easier to come up with prospective areas of improvement rather than giving out mostly unhelpful self-apparent platitudes. And I spent a lot of time going over what I like in the first video anyways. But I do think that the fabric is good. I think the fit is great, if somewhat restrictive on me personally. I think the details are personable and charming. I think the design is mostly well thought out and mostly cohesive, and a lot of design iterations have already been accounted for. So if you're just looking for a nice denim jacket or the denim jacket, then I think this is a great option that does well to support a very passionate little snail. That doesn't mean it's flawless, but neither are any other denim jackets on the market. The price for being a made in Japan, made in USA Selvedge denim piece seems pretty in line with other market offerings and pretty reasonable. So if that's important to you, then like I said, it seems like a good option. If Selvedge isn't for you, then that's great too, because I think that Michael's doing a very smart thing with his leaf line, and I can only recommend such non-Selvedge iterations even more wholeheartedly. Levi trucker jackets are almost $100 retail these days. God knows why. I can say with 100% confidence that you are getting more than 50% extra jacket if you just go ahead and splurge on the Prologue's leaf. But that's my take. About a year in, I don't think I'm going to do another one of these. If you have a Prologue per chance, go ahead. Let me know what you think down below. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. And I did add a locker loop, and it does hold up fantastic. Thank you very much.